Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. I'm Brian Lee Crowley. I'm the managing director of the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, and on behalf of MLI and all my colleagues here in the room, I'd like to welcome you to this special event on the global significance of Canada's energy resources. Merci d'être venus si nombreux. Thanks for coming. Just a word about MLI for those of you who may not be familiar with us, although I see a number of regular attenders at our events, and we're always delighted to see you. The international think tank rankings put out every year by the University of Pennsylvania consistently rank us as the top think tank in Ottawa and one of the top 4 or 5 in the country. Those same rankings found us to be one of the top 3 new think tanks in the world in 2013. In our first book, The Canadian Century, Moving Out of America's Shadow, a prescient title, I like to think, won the Sir Anthony Fisher Prize for the top think tank book internationally several years ago. And just last year, our work on Aboriginal Canada and the natural resource economy was shortlisted for the top global prize for a think tank project. Just a few months ago, we won the Prospect Magazine Prize for the top social policy think tank in North America, beating out such small American organizations as the Rand Corporation with a budget of $350 million. We'll stack our $2 million up against them any day. National security, defense, and foreign affairs concerns are increasingly moving to the center stage in our work, as this event, amongst others, attests. Now, while Canadians debate interminably the value of building pipelines, for example, to get our energy resources to tidewater, in our own very Canadian fashion, we tend to be maybe just a little bit parochial. And we don't ask ourselves whether it might matter to others whether we are successful in getting those pipelines and resources to tidewater. So today's event asks, on behalf of Canadians, does anyone care whether we build the infrastructure to get our energy resources to others? And the answer, I think, you will find, is a resounding yes, not least because our allies and close trading partners around the world must worry constantly about their own energy insecurity. Many of the energy resources that satisfy this demand, internationally, however, must travel through some of the world's most troubled regions in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the Western Pacific. Canada has a potentially important role to play here. Unlike supplies, energy supplies that originate from unstable countries like Russia and those in the Middle East, or traverse vulnerable choke points like the Straits of Hormuz and the Straits of Malacca, Canadian energy resources do not pose these geostrategic conundrums. We are uniquely positioned both to supply our allies with the energy they need, while also lessening the energy influence of some of the world's bad actors. And by the way, we can make a good living doing so. Take the example of Japan's high-profile troubles with nuclear power. This has fostered an interest in renewables, but also in coal and natural gas, both of which we are producing in Canada in large quantities. South Korea, meanwhile, is moving in the opposite direction, embracing nuclear at the expense of non-renewables, and Saskatchewan offers a stable, long-term nuclear fuel supply. In fact, Saskatchewan represents about 1/5 of the world's supply of uranium. And in both cases, our resources take a short route across the Pacific under the protection of the US fleet, and of course the Canadian fleet too, avoiding strategic choke points. The geopolitics of energy is perhaps most fraught in Europe, which is already uncomfortably dependent on Russian oil and faces a glut of Russian natural gas, as well with too few alternatives to mitigate the risk of Russia using energy dependence to drive political bargaining power. Canada's friends and allies therefore look to Canada to show leadership in helping them to overcome these risks and dangers. It's not only in Canada's economic interest to make Canadian energy resources and technologies accessible to those who want them. It also affects the global balance of power and influence in favor of our allies and away from dangerous alternatives when we do so. The world needs more Canadian energy. To shed light on these issues, we're pleased to bring together some of the leading thinkers from Canada and the world to discuss the global significance of Canadian energy. Our first speaker is Hisashi Ikeda, who is President and CEO of Mitsubishi Canada. Mr. Ikeda joined Mitsubishi in 1986 and started his career in coal trading. Since then, he spent about 30 years, mostly in mineral resources trading and investment business fields, including the export of Canadian thermal and metallurgical coal to the Japanese market. He experienced several overseas assignments, including coal trading in Jakarta, resource development in Johannesburg, steel business development in Singapore, and has been in Vancouver as the head of Mitsubishi's Canadian operation since March 2016. And of course, the timing of today's event couldn't be better, since Mitsubishi is one of the leading partners in the recently announced LNG export terminal project in British Columbia. And perhaps Mr. Ikeda can give us some insight into what drove Japanese interest and investment in Canadian natural gas, and perhaps even some of the challenges his company has faced in turning this theoretical interest into practical projects. I'd like to invite Mr. Ikeda to come to the podium.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Addison. Choose the next slide. This one. Okay, got it. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hisashi Ikeda of Mitsubishi Canada Limited. It's an honor for me to have this great opportunity to present our Canadian business activities this morning. In presenting our business activities in Canada, it's very important to first let you properly and clearly understand what is Mitsubishi Corporation, because our business, we are very uniquely diversified, and our business model is very different from all the rest of the world. First of all, many of Canadian people still don't really understand what is the name of Mitsubishi. It used to be a name of one single big trading and shipping company established in the late 19th century. But nowadays, it's a name of a group of independent companies, including ourselves. Other names in our group, Mitsubishi Group, is the Mitsubishi Motors, Mitsubishi Electric, Heavy Industries, MUFG Bank, or you may know the camera company, Nikon, is also Mitsubishi Group companies, and many more. Among those group companies, our company, Mitsubishi Corporation, is very uniquely positioned by facing with various industries. When I joined Mitsubishi Corporation some 30 years ago, we used to call and recognize ourselves as a general trading company, having most of our profit coming from our trading businesses. But since then, we have challenged to transform ourselves to more investment-oriented business model. And nowadays, majority or more than 90% of our profit comes from management and operation of invested businesses in all over the world. This slide shows you some numbers on our Mitsubishi Corporation and the variety of its business portfolio. Having more than 200 overseas offices in some 90 countries, that is our strength. We could make a record profit last year of US dollar 5.1 billion. And we are working hard to make it even more for this current year or toward the future. As you can see in this slide, we are facing with various industries, from the upstream to downstream, or from the $1 billion mega project to retail store chains. And that variety of growth portfolio is one of our strengths, because we can access the new opportunities or very small opportunities or very potential opportunities which lie in between the industries. Among others, energy and mineral resource businesses is one of our particular strengths. This slide shows our global resource project investment portfolio. Upper side shows you oil and gas project portfolio, while the lower map is for the mineral resources. While we have participated in various natural gas projects in all over the world, including Southeast Asia, Middle East, Russia, Sakhalin, Australia, and North America. Also, we are very active in the metallurgical coal and copper projects in Australia and South America. Particularly for the metallurgical coal, we are the second largest producer after BHP Billiton. Our Canadian business is positioned very strategically in this global portfolio. That's why I stick to present our summary of our company before getting into the Canadian story. I've been in Canada for just past 2.5 years, so I'm just the latest part of our more than 60 years business history in Canada. But I try to tell you what is the latest business portfolio of Mitsubishi Corporation in Canada, focusing on the resource and energy businesses. Starting from the East Coast, it is our investment into iron ore mine and its processing plant located in Labrador. Name of the company is Iron Ore Company of Canada, joint venture with Rio Tinto, and we have 27% equity and sending some staff for to the management of this operation in Labrador. In northern Toronto, we have a solar power generation company named Aurora Solar. Moving into Saskatchewan, no slide, but in Saskatchewan, we are investigating some new uranium deposit for the future potential development. And this slide, in northeast BC, near Montney, as many of you may aware, we are a part of the most competitive shale gas operation in Canada, in a joint venture with Encana. Name of the company partnership is Cutbank Rich Partnership. Not for investment, but we are exporting Canadian biomass energy of wood pellet to Japanese power generators for cleaner power generation. In Vancouver Island, we own and operate a different type of resource business. That is salmon farming with the name of Selmac. Again, next slide shows you not the investment but trading business. But this is natural gas trading through our subsidiary company named Astomos Energy, which is one of the largest LPG distributor in Japan. Astomos Energy has signed a long-term contract to buy LPG propane from AltaGas. For Canada, this is the very first long-term contract to export its natural gas to Asian market. We are very much proud of being part of this historical deal. Finally, no need to talk a lot about this. LNG Canada finally made an announcement of a final investment decision earlier this week. We are part of this project, having 15% equity in that project. This tens of billion-dollar project will immediately start construction work, both of plant, terminal, and the pipeline, with a target to start operation in sometime in mid of 2020s. Particularly for natural gas, it is needless to mention that opening Canadian West Coast port for the natural gas export to growing demand in Asian countries directly fits Canada's national interest. On the other hand, while majority of Japan's energy imports tend to go through the South and East China Sea, where the security situation has rapidly changed in recent days. The sea route from western coast Canada to Asian countries obviously is much safer than that. Also, your southern neighbor of the United States has started to export its natural gas, LNG, to Asian market, taking about 25 days of a voyage through the Panama Canal. Sea route from western coast Canada to Japanese market or Asian country takes just 10 days. This means that for Japan, having LNG supply source in western coast Canada makes a great geopolitical and economic sense as long as it is competitively priced. We highly appreciate both federal and provincial governments' sincere and strong support to our resource project, resource businesses, particularly for LNG Canada, and wish them to keep supporting us in various aspects, including but not limited to taxation or First Nations engagement or smooth immigration procedures for skilled workers, and so on and so forth. Some people still criticize LNG Canada project by saying that it will make the British Columbia miss the carbon emission reduction target. It's okay. It's up to Canada or up to local people, export or not export its natural gas to Asian market. But as you know, there is no border in air pollutions. So if the cleaner energy would not be exported to Asian market, obviously they will use more dirtier energies for power generation, and then eventually deteriorate the global air pollution. It is impossible to develop the resource project with zero damage, zero impact on the natural environment. An important thing is to encourage close communication between stakeholders and seek for a public consensus on the best balance between competitive development of a natural resource and preservation of nature and minority people's interest. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.